nice. I'll sit down again. Yes, welcome to our 38th annual general meeting. Yes. This year is very special historically. 1934 was quite a year for the Lagonda Company. Prior to that, of course, they'd had to weather the wretched depression when the motor industry was definitely overpopulated with too many cars. But he's an unsung hero, General Metcalf, who ran the company and decided to go upmarket with the semi-sports tourer in the mid-20s and developed the 3-litre, which was for stately carriages. And then, of course, the depression came and they weren't hardly selling any cars at all. In fact, at one stage, according to Arnold's book, they had to borrow one of the older engineers' pension to pay the wages. He very generously offered his pension lump sum to pay the wages for a week, and he got his money back, so that's reassuring. So the good general, having desperately needed more urge from the 3-litre engine, had done what a lot of these industrialists do, because he wasn't an engineer. He'd hired a specialist called Harry Ricardo, and he, of course, done what all specialists do, decided it needed a new cylinder head. And his 3-litre cylinder head was a disaster. You can see from the letters that General Metcalf exchanged with him. So he then took another big gamble. He decided to buy the very expensive Meadows engine and put it into the 3-litre, which was much more expensive than their own, Lagonda's own engine. He also took another gamble, which is what we're celebrating today, to build the best small car in the world, the Rapier. And this was a very interesting idea, to find that niche in the market where somebody wants the jewel that is the Rapier car. I mean, it was reasonably quite successful. They sold nearly 400 of these lovely cars, and I had a friend who's no longer with us, obviously, who bought one new. He was a man of small stature, and he was a Harley Street dentist, and he lived in London, obviously, so the Rapier was ideal for him. He was very wealthy, so it didn't matter the cost of it, and it was a beautiful little car, and it was a Lagonda, and he really enjoyed it, and he kept it till the mid-60s. And I had to crew for him in his Firefly, which was a very hairy experience. But anyway, what have I had to say? Oh yes, fast forward to 1964, which is 60 years ago now. Herb Schofield and I decided to build a racing car, so we got an old chassis, and I had a very old Meadows engine out of my saloon, which was worn out, but I was convinced that it would be a world beater. So we set off to April Silverstone in 1965, expecting to immediately win all the races. And I was very surprised when everyone drove past me. But there was a chap there called Elliot Elder, who was a man of few words. I don't know whether any of you remember him. And he had a Rapier, and John Abson was his driver, or I think they probably shared the car. And in those days, you could have a word with the clerk of the course, and he let me go out for a lap or two of Silverstone in the Rapier that Elliot had prepared. Well, I scared myself to death. It was an absolute flying machine, and a real credit to what could be done. He was a bit like that chap who did the fastest engine, you know, that motorbike thing. He'd done it all in his own workshop, made his own pistons, and he'd got this Rapier absolutely flying. And at one stage at Oulton Park, we saw him racing against the ERAs and keeping up with the leaders of the ERAs in this rapier until unfortunately he rolled it at Cascades, and I think that was probably the end of the story. I can't actually remember what happened. Jonathan wasn't badly injured, but anyway. The other anniversary we celebrate today is that 40 years ago was the first Lagonda dinner, and it was a Lagonda car club then, and it was run by the company in London. Unfortunately, the good General Metcalfe, had sadly just died. It happened a lot in those days, and the host was Major Oates. You probably heard of Major Oates, who drove an 11.9 to Lancaster in the day, and then set off to come home. Because having done it, he thought it would be rather clever to drive back to London that night. Unfortunately, he had a crash through over-fortifying himself against the cold. But looking back, the good General would be delighted that so many of us are here today enjoying the fruits of his gamble. And we've had some wonderful rallies. As Martin mentioned at the dinner last night, if somebody had done all the Lagonda rallies this year, they'd have had a very busy summer. And you know, Martin Sumner and Janice kicked it off, and then Jean van der Est and Isabel and Bill and Sue Spence and, you know, Catherine Monington. Yeah, really good. We had a lot of splendid rallies this year. Apologies if I've forgotten somebody. Next year's Continental is in Vienna, which is perhaps a bit of a long haul for us, but quite a few of us went to the rally in Ghent, which was very spectacular. I'm delighted that our new chairman and his youthful team have hit the ground running, and the club is energised. I actually sat through a board meeting the other day and I didn't fall asleep. So, you know, and of course, a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, some of which you'll hear about today, but a lot of it you won't, just to make things seamless and pleasant for us that want to enjoy our hobby. I'm optimistic now that the electric car threat, which I call greenwashing, I think the wheels are gradually coming off this all-electric concept, and I'm working out how to make my Lagonda a hybrid with a small battery so I can pull a lever and glide through a village and get out of the village and pull the lever the other way and then drive off. And, I think that'd be splendid. But as I say, we benefit from all the volunteers that run the club. We haven't got an expensive head office with a lot of staff, which is an absolute nightmare for the Bentley Club and the Rolls Club and the Aston Club, meaning they have to recruit all the new car people to pay the wages of the staff, and huge numbers in the club. And really, when you go to a Bentley Club meeting now, it's nothing like it was 30 years ago. They're all new cars. But Roland, with he's done a fantastic job in getting the magazine. I think you've done 3 issues now, haven't you? And of course that records the evidence of what we've been up to. And I think if anyone actually outside the Lagonda Club got the magazine, they would be extremely envious. Similar historic cars just don't have these wonderful all-period car rallies. But as the late lamented Dennis Jenkinson said, the Lagonda Club keeps itself nicely to itself. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for turning up on what is a torrential day, really. So well done indeed, particularly for those who brought some of the old Lagondas and the rapiers. So I'd like to welcome you all here, and thank you to Adam for flying in from Geneva. Well done. And for the Scottish contingent for putting all those miles on your modern car on the way down. So, when I stood up last year, prior to taking over the role from John in January, I said there were a number of things that I wanted to, that were fundamental for the club. Finances, the spare scheme, the archives, and members' sort of social events and things. Well, we'll talk about some of that as we go through the morning, or won't be too long, hopefully. But also, the other thing I wanted to do was have better links with the Rapier Register. And so thank you to all the Rapier Register guys who come along and brought your rapiers, and the Eccles. Thank you, Tim, for doing that. It's fantastic. The Eccles Rapier is currently undercover in the marquee out there. And of course, because of the weather, and actually last night, we've got all the cars here in front of us, and I think we'll probably leave them there rather than take them onto the grass afterwards. Hopefully that might be the best solution today. There's room for a couple more cars if they should turn up. But obviously the weather hasn't helped us today. I want to thank all the board members for all the work that you do. And I'd also like to thank the area representatives for the work they do, and also for another group that quite often gets sort of overlooked, and that's the Spares Committee. We spend a lot of time on your behalf to actually ensure that we have our spares. So thank you to all of those. Got a couple of new members. Tim, are you quite welcome to join us up here, or do you want to stay there?
Disrupt my process.
No, not at all. Thank you to Peter for helping with the setting up of the AGM. It's actually run a lot smoother this year. We've got some different staff in there, and they've been very helpful to us, and coffee should be on the way. They promised me it was coming along. So hopefully we'll be able to get that. And thanks to Len and Rachel for running around this morning. Rachel, I don't know where you are. Thank you. We'll probably just leave the cars here for now. Is that okay? But thank you for marking everything out. And today, I think we will do the presentations at 2 o'clock rather than 3 o'clock. Partially due to the weather, but actually it's about the right time of day for it. So apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Catherine, who's away on holiday at the moment. Arnold, who will be watching us on Zoom, I believe. James, who's watching us on Zoom. And hopefully, in the near future, or next time, we'll have a screen so that we can have an interactive Zoom. That would be the intention. Apologies also from Nigel Hall and Kevin. Kevin's got a bit of an eyesight issue and he can't drive at the moment, so Kevin Lloyd-Bisley isn't here. So first of all, we need to approve the accounts. So Brian, can I hand over to you and just
You may.
give you a few minutes to explain everything that's going on?
Right. Should be getting used to this by now. I think this is the 10th time I've stood up in front of you. As usual, I'm going to assume that you've read the report, the accounts, and my brief summary of it. The year ended 31st of March last year, 2024 this year, sorry, was an average sort of year. There was nothing particularly unusual going on. The year before was actually more special, and as a result, the results for this year look a little bit poorer. But if you compare this with the earlier years, going back to the early 20s, it's very much in line with expectations. Just quickly running down the numbers, the turnover was down by 2.5%. So it was up by 2.5%, but unfortunately the cost of sales was up by 4%. So you don't need me to tell you what the result of that was. We kept our administrative costs down to an increase of 3.5%, which against the background of inflation running for that period at around about 8% is pretty good. I think I have to say that we are running out of options. We've spent a lot of time trying to keep our fixed costs as low as possible. I think other than that, if anybody has a question to ask, I would do my best to answer it. If not, I'd like someone to propose the
Cash in the bank at the moment, Brian?
Cash at the bank at the moment is down to about, where are we? Let me tell you. 77,878 as of this time last night.
Very good.
Yesterday. That's a small reduction since the end of the financial year, but that's And that's normal because we get our subscription income in the first quarter of the year, and we tend to obviously spend that over the remaining period. So does anybody have any questions? And let's be honest, look, if you have a question at any time regarding the accounts, not just today, any time at all, I'm on the other end of a phone or an email. So please do ask me. I'll do my best to explain what's going on. There are no secrets here. We'd like to keep it as open as possible. Okay.
Okay, so can we have someone to approve the accounts, please?
No questions. Right.
Tim, thank you. And second? Jonathan. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. And then
Who was the second?
Jonathan.
Oh, okay, thank you.
okay, we need then to approve the appointment of Manning Chackle.
Yes.
For the,
No.
Just have to vote
can I-
if anyone's again.
Yeah. And is anyone against the accounts?
You've all
Just-
read-
just the
you've
rain
all-
by
You've
the
all
sound
read
of
them,
it.
haven't you? Okay.
And we need to approve the reappointment of Manny Chacko as the reporting accountant. So can I have someone to... Thank you, Colin. And someone second? Thank you, Michael. Right. Any votes against? That's pretty straightforward then, isn't it? Next we have, we're just going to do a little bit about the Articles of Association. So Articles of Association for the club, a legal requirement, and when they were set up back in 1987, they used the 1985 Articles of Association, the template for them. So it needed a bit of a rewrite to bring electronic stuff into the Articles of Association, and just a rewrite. When I started this role earlier on in the year, I thought, you know, we need to update it. So Brian and I spent a little bit of time rewording it, putting the electronic items into the Articles of Association, and then passed it along to Tim Parker for a bit of a legal sort of look at it. And when Tim looked at it and talked to a colleague who was in the Companies area, really we need to update it to the Companies Act of 2006, and that was the recommendation. And that automatically brings all the electronic era into it. And so this is a bit of a dull subject, I know, but it's something that we have to have for the running of the club. And also explains the roles and responsibilities of directors. So this needs to be approved by the AGM, and it's not ready to be approved because it's actually a little bit of work that we need to do on it. So that will be coming along for next year. But while we were doing that, we were discussing about the constitution of the board and, you know, what the minimum and maximum number of directors should be. And so we came to the conclusion at the board meeting in July that we should have a minimum of 6 directors on the board. And what we didn't want to do was to actually stop people from wanting to join the board and having to be a director. So if they join the board, they don't have to be a director. In actual fact, the officers and the board of directors have people who are doing extremely important functions. A couple of gentlemen to my right here, sort of the membership secretary, the magazine, etc. They are not directors, but actually a really important function of running the club. So that's what we're proposing to put together, and will be updated and ready for the AGM of next year. So a little bit of background. I know it's a bit dull, but it needs to be done. So it comes to the re-election of board members now. So we have, on a 3-yearly cycle, we have a number that are waiting for re-election from your good selves, and that is James Baxendale, Arnold, Tim, and Nigel Smith. So we'll do this individually. Can we have someone to propose for James Baxendale? Thank you, John. And second? Okay. Tim? Thank you very much. And anyone against? No? This is reasonably good. Arnold Davey. Good morning, Arnold, if you are on there. So can we have someone to recommend Arnold to carry on? Jonathan, thank you. And second by my mother, Valerie. Tim Parker. Thank you very much. And the second, Tim Metcalf, thank you.
Can you read those back out to me, please?
Yes.
Martin? I've got
Sorry.
notes of these. So the first one was John Boys, and who else? That was James Baxendale. Who was the seconder for James?
My mother, Barry.
Okay. And
Was
for
it?
Arnold Davey?
Oh, sorry, that was Jonathan and my mother. I've lost track of who's proposing second, to be honest.
Okay, right. 3, Tim Parker. Okay.
And
Tim was
It was me, Simon Allen.
Simon Mount. I'm racing ahead of Roger here a bit.
And second?
Who's the comment?
Who's second?
Oh, Tim.
Tim Metcalfe.
Tim Metcalfe.
Thank you very much. And Nigel Smale. Rachel at the back.
Okay.
And second. Thank you, Roger.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Okay, and so the board recommends their re-election, so that's going to go ahead. And the election of Kevin Lloyd Bisley. So Kevin was co-opted earlier on this year for the digitisation of the archives, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And so someone to propose. Kevin. Thank you, David. And second. Thank you, Simon. Good. So let's move on to something that's not my voice, which would be better, really. So let's look at the spares. John, if you could, as a spares manager, just give us an overview on what's happening there, please.
Anyway, thank you all very much. As you all know, the spares operation is very much the heart of the club. And one of our main objectives as a club is to keep the cars on the road, and without the spares that can't happen. As you know, the spares operationally is run by Robin, who will say a few words in just a second. And we have a wonderful spares team. The thing that really matters in spares is availability. People moan about the prices, people moan about all sorts of things, but if it's unavailable, we're wasting our time. And the fact of the matter is that our team under Robin managed availability of about 99%. So of all the spares we've got in our portfolio, which is now more than 1,000 items, there's 99% availability. And for a small amateur operation like that, I have to tell you that's very, very good. And that's top of the list. The other thing that matters, of course, is there's a lot of money tied up in the spares. We've got thick end of £500,000, well, it's 400,000 of members, effectively your money, the members' money, tied up in the spares. And Robin is the custodian of that to make sure it doesn't get nicked, it doesn't rust away, and it doesn't just sort of disappear. So there's a lot of money involved, and that we need to bear in mind that that's the members' money, and you've all got a little share in that. I'm always interested in Brian, who's our wonderful finance director down there, standing up and saying we have an average sort of year. I always remember accountants saying an average year is one that's worse than last year, but better than next year. So I'm always worried about averages. But it's notable, if you look at our spares business, we've got a turnover of about 140 grand. And that's been very consistent now for many years. And you would think, therefore, that it's a steady business. But of course, with price increases, which go up every year, sadly, the number actually is coming down. So in managing the spares, we have to be very cautious and remembering that the cars are getting better all the time. There are fewer people needing major restorations, and we are actually in many ways in a shrinking market. And that has to be managed quite carefully, and it's worth bearing that in mind. But overall, I think the spares team does a first-class job for you all. And with that laudatory introduction, I'll ask Robin to stand up and you can fire all the technical questions at him.
Thank you for those kind words, John, but we're governed by John and Brian, who keep a very tight eye on us, and the spares committee, who do a brilliant job suggesting spares we ought to make and finding all the information out and firing it to us. And for that, it's a great organisation, but it's a great club. And everybody's happy here. Not all clubs are like that. I know I've been in this business for 50 odd years, and there's some pretty miserable people out there, but this club has always I'm also very lucky to have Leah and Francis, who are fantastic at this lark, and they're very pernickety. And oh my God, if something isn't right, Leah will tell me in 2 seconds. And I can say this because she's not here at the moment, she's guarding the spares tent. If there are any problems you've got, come and see us with the spares, and we'll do what we can to sort it out. And with that, I've spent my allotted time. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry, are there any questions? Oh no!
Earlier this year, we carried out a survey on the spare scheme. What was the conclusion of the survey?
That's still being analysed at the moment. I think we've published the results, but we're still analysing everything, and we hope to produce the results fairly shortly.
I think I should probably answer that. We had a very good response to that. Normally, I forget what the percent. Normally, on a survey like that, when you go out to a membership, if you get 5% back, it's a fantastic result. And I think we got. Can you remember what it was, Martin?
No, it's much more than that.
It's far more than that. It's like something like 15% or something. I mean, it was a very, very good response, and we are going through that. And there will be a report back to members, probably in one of the newsletters in the course of the year. Once one's got all the analysis done, and we've got to decide what we want to do about things. But it was a worthwhile exercise, and there will be some feedback as soon as possible.
No.
And that's my job, not Robin's.
Any further questions for Rob?
As part of the survey, could we perhaps have a little bit more realism into the cost of postage? I wanted to buy an oil filter gasket, which was £2, and it was going to be £13 for postage, which would have fitted into a 25p envelope with a 65p stamp.
I didn't.
Yes, I think. Did we charge you £30?
No, I didn't buy it.
Oh, we'd have. No, you should. You should have given us a ring.
Postage and made one in 20 minutes.
This is an anomaly in the system, and we try and with things like that, we try and just post them and just charge you the postage. It's one of those tricky ones.
But perhaps something to look into. As part
Yes,
of
a
the
continuing balance
into
act with postage and
the
transport.
post office issue a very nice little booklet which tells you the cost of postage for different sizes, and
Yeah.
I just think £13 for a £2 gasket was a
Yeah.
little bit
No, you're right.
excessive.
Yeah.
The trouble is, Peter, if the amount of work involved in costing each individual package is, you just couldn't afford it. So we have to have some fixed things, and sometimes the fixed things look stupid, and that's one of them. But we haven't got the admin time to go through and cost every individual package individually, and that's the problem. But if you ring up, you'll find that Robin's team will accommodate you sometimes, not always.
I may go both. I'll get excellent service from Robin and Leah. It's not a criticism of them, it's perhaps the controls which are put onto the spares by the directors.
We'll have a word afterwards. You can come and beat me up afterwards.
Any other questions? I will sit down. Thank you very much. Quickly.
Next, Roland, if you could say a few words about the magazine.
Hello. So as David mentioned earlier, I've produced the last 3 magazines, and I've already started work on the next. In truth, I tend to start work on the next magazine somewhere between it going to the publishers and you guys getting it. So just chip away at it for a while. Having taken over from Roger, obviously there's quite a lot I've had to live up to, and the history before that as well. It's a well-respected magazine, and it's quite expensive to produce as well. So there's a lot to take into account along the way, because the standards have always been high. I've been very lucky to have been given some brilliant articles from people. I don't write this stuff. I pull it together, It's been a joy to pull all this information together. Some great photos. Try to put more photos in as we've been going through. You may have noticed that the magazine has increased in size from what was 44 pages to 48. We're right up against the ragged edge of what we can squeeze into an envelope before we dive into the next postage bracket, which is extraordinarily expensive to do. So at 48 pages, that's it. I've been getting plenty of content to make use of that space, so long may that last. Not been completely without its challenges. Just after the first magazine I produced, our publishers / printers retired with very, very little notice. So another one was in the wings very quickly, but there was a lot of fancy footwork to get them up to speed with what I can only describe as the Lagonda way. They didn't realise the quality of the printing and so on to start with. They were going to print it in-house, but it's actually litho printed, and that's why it's so beautiful. The photographs come out nicely. And there's various things I don't even know anyone noticed, but I kind of noticed because I knew what I was expecting. Some of the photographs came out a bit darker than they should have done, but that's been fixed for the last one. So it should all be quite smooth now. They know our way. I kind of know how to work with them. But that took a little bit of effort. All of the content I mentioned, of course, is provided to me effectively by you guys. And I'm going out to get as much variety of content as I can, not just small articles, large articles, medium ones, lots of good photographs. I'm trying to get more articles from our overseas members as well. It's very UK-centric. That's kind of natural, and it's very logical that would sort of happen, but I want to get more, and you'll see a bit more in this next magazine actually. So I'm sort of cajoling people, trying to bring in some light-hearted elements as well. I was requested to bring in the Alan cartoons, and what a joy that is for me. I hope you guys like them as well. And as I've mentioned a few times now, there's been some brilliant photographs coming in. So I'm just a member. I don't have all the answers. If anyone has got any ideas as to what they would like to see in the magazine, or even tweaked about the way I'm doing it, I'm completely open to this. So please just drop me a line with your thoughts, and I'll be all ears to find out what people would like. So that's kind of, if you like, my report. There's one other thing that I need to do, I'm very happy to do, is there's the Gosling Trophy, which is a trophy I discovered that I'm allowed to actually award for someone who's produced some great content for the magazine. There are actually quite a few people that came to mind, but in the end I've chosen somebody because they've in effect upped the idea about promoting events within the club. This guy, I don't think I've seen Paul Anderson here, have I? Not here? No, I didn't think so. Paul started producing these posters. You'll have probably seen it for the first Spitfire event, and that had quite an instant effect. People, it's inspiring to see those kind of things. It actually, I suppose you could say from a marketing perspective, it kind of helps to get people familiar with these things that are going on, eye-catching, and it turns out that there's actually quite a lot of demand for these to be printed and people to frame them and have on their walls and things like that. I do. I think they're great. And he was very willing to help on a couple of the other events as well. So you've seen the poster for the Brooklands Fete. You've seen the poster also in the magazine that will be produced next year for the Le Mans trip as well. So these are lovely things, but he's also, by putting on the Spitfire events, and which is brilliant photos that come out of that, and what's going on during the event as well, has done a lot for us. So not here, but I'll make sure he gets the Gosling Trophy for all of his efforts, and long may it continue. So there you go.
Thank you, and I would add one thing on there. The Lagonda Club has an Instagram account now. I might see a little bit of this is all a bit weird, but we have an Instagram account, Lagonda_Club_events, which we're populating, and actually Paul's posters did appear on that for those of you who've got Instagram. As a matter of interest, how many do have an Instagram account here? I wouldn't say that's a majority, to be fair.
Not quite 20 minutes.
But for those who might be tempted, it might be worth having a look at. Because we are,
How many
we've
are
now
on
got,
Facebook?
we've now got about 150 followers, and people are starting to look at it a bit more. Rapier Club does have an Instagram account as well. Yes, I don't know who runs that actually, Tim.
The club doesn't actually.
It's not the club?
An individual who took the name.
Oh, okay.
But he is active, posts actively, and the posts aren't offensive, so we're happy with it.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask about the Facebook one, which I was told when somebody Googled it in front of me has something over 900 members.
I don't have anything to do with the Facebook nor do the club as such. I believe Tim Ludbrook runs that, but it's...
I was amazed, so I just wondered where this had sprung up from nowhere, almost.
I don't know. We've been doing the Instagram account. My wife puts things up onto that. Just promoting events, really. But we do get quite a bit of interest in it now. So that's a bit of an aside, really. Moving on, competition report from Tim Parker, please.
Yes. I'll join you up here at the Politburo for this part. Thank you very much for proposing and seconding another period on the committee. I'm delighted to accept that and look forward to being involved in competitions for a few more years hence. We're very lucky, as ever, that we have a large number of events organised by the VSEC, by Motor Racing Legends and other organisations for our cars. The VSEC has evolved its racing programme a little bit this year, which might be of interest to us because they now have 2 grids in scratch races and often 2 grids in handicap races, one designed for the faster cars and one designed for the slower cars. I think people didn't quite have the hang of it at the beginning of the year because it was described as a fast grid and a slow grid, and funnily enough, nobody wants to admit that they had a slow car grid. So there were, I think at Silverstone there was something like 3 people in the slow car grid. And of course, the office rearranged it. But it does mean that speed differentials, which might be a concern of some of us, need not be so great a concern within VSEC racing. And the slow grid is just as competitive as the fast grid is. It just happens that people are moving at a slightly different pace. And I suspect that was inspired by the Longstone long car race that took place this year. I think it did at Donington. And also there's an experimental 50-minute Le Mans style race that the club tried to instigate at Donington as well. So 5 race meetings organised by the VSEC, another grid available to us at Alton Park, along with the programme of hill climbs and sprints that I'm sure you will all be familiar with. All we need is for more people to come along and join in. 2 new cars have been seen so far as I'm aware this year. Tamara Morley racing her father's LG 45 with considerable success over the year. I spoke to her at Donington. She was loving it, really enjoying that, and I think has been present at every VSEC meeting this year. And also Paul Yallop. I'm not sure if Paul is here, I can't quite see. Yes, he is over there. Welcome, Paul, who took part in the long car race at Donington this year in his lovely 3-litre, and I think was hoping to have been at Mallory as well, but there were no doubt other matters in the way. So more cars coming along. On a personal note, after 6 years absence, I was delighted to be back on the track this year in the 2.4.5, which seems so far to be going well, with about 10 seconds or so improvement in lap times. Somebody asked me how much I thought that was per £1,000 spent in built, and I decided to treat that as a rhetorical question. But it's great fun. There are plenty of races abroad as well. Last weekend, Angoulême, the famous road race was taking place. Next weekend, Motor Racing Legends have a race at Spa. I'm involved in something in Portimao involving a brand beginning with the capital B, not my own car, in a few weeks' time. So I didn't go to Angoulême or Spa, but I certainly would have been at Spa, but for the race at Portimao in a few weeks' time. So, as I say, please do join in. Come along to speak to me, to Tim Wadsworth, who is still racing heroically in the 2 litre, to Tim Metcalf, who is out in the Eccles, all very senior and experienced racers who will be able to give you lots of advice. The VSCC has its own mentoring scheme, so that if you are wondering whether you want to join in, whether it's for you, that you can get in touch with them and they'll allocate somebody to oversee the beginning and the early stages of the race. So there's lots of fun to be had, and as I always say, it supports our spares scheme the more that we race our cars. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I will second what Tim said about supporting the spares scheme. I seem to be doing that by myself at the moment. Hopefully I'll be ready for Le Mans Classic for next year. We'll see. Well, no, I will be. Next item is digitisation of the archive. So that's something I picked up last year, James and myself. It's something we're very keen, and the whole board are very keen to do. And in the past, it was about cost, really. So what we've done is we've set up a subcommittee. We've got involved with Genus, who are an organisation that digitise for clubs, for lots of organisations. And they've been very good, actually, and they gave us a quote for the magazines, which was very reasonable, I thought, from what we had in the past. And so we've started that process. They now have all 280 of our magazines, and they're going through a digitisation process for that. And they hope to have that ready probably in the next month or so that we'll have the search function available for all magazines that we have, which would be fantastic. What we have got to do is to work out what platform to put it on. So that's a bit of work in progress, and there's always costs involved, so we'll obviously be looking very carefully at the costs of whether we use Genus or whether we use a separate website, and there's something that Len and I have been discussing a little bit. So the further parts to do with the digitisation of the archives that Arnold holds, including the W.O. Bentley, which are very valuable, and we've also got to look and see what we can sell on the open market as well, once it's been digitised. And I think there's a possibility of getting some revenue in that, which will help with our costs. And part of it will be also using some of those archives, and we'll try and do that within house of digitising ourselves as well. So the bits that are less critical, shall we say. But there's a lot of work to be done over a course of probably a few years in reality. But digitisation will keep it safe for us for the future, which is the key thing. But also the fact that you could be able to search for various articles or put in, the almost pointless questions, so that you only get a few search results come up. But I think it'll be a real benefit to members. Has anyone got any questions on the digitisation side? Tim?
Yes, Michael Drakeford did a very useful analysis of the technical articles for the last 60 years or so, which I've actually had recourse to the other day. Will you include that with the digitisation of the whole lot of magazines?
Yes. Yes. So you should be able to search for everything, anything virtually, in that within the magazine setup. So either individual magazines or the magazines as a whole. It's still a work in progress, but yeah, I think it'll be a real benefit to members. Michael?
Might I ask whether that index can be carried forward, so it is available separately and updated, so that you could go to that as a primary search tool?
You're probably going deeper into it than I know, and Kevin will probably be able to answer your questions there.
I think that's one thing, and the other thing is it is a platform that would be useful for the drawings and tech specs for the spares department as well. Will it step over into that area?
It would be fantastic if it did. The drawings are held by Chris Leo, and John has got the, what is it, they call them the...
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
John Leo, he holds the, what does he hold?
Chassis cards.
I can't remember the name of it.
John Leo.
Yes, build sheets. John Leo holds the build sheets. Now, they're holding on to those at the moment, and they want lots of money for it, which we can't really afford.
And as for the, the engineering drawings and specs and things, again, if this platform was transferable, would the spares operation be able to use it or input into it?
I'm not sure how much benefit. John, would you be able to say how
So
much
I didn't
benefit
hear the question.
Okay, it's to do with the drawings and how beneficial they would be to the spares area.
Not at all.
Not a lot. But we have discussed this before, haven't we?
They're mainly not of spares, they're of assemblies or the things we wouldn't want to make spares of anyway. We've had a good look at it and they're worth it from an archive point of view, something, but not as a functional use for day-to-day making things.
And the build sheets would be lovely to have as well, but we don't own them and we don't want to pay the money that's being asked at the moment.
Yeah, they've got an exaggerated idea of their value, let's put it that way.
Yes, absolutely.
An awful lot of the drawings are nuts and bolts. And that's it. Just nuts and bolts.
Yes, some of the drawings really are not beneficial to us. They would, as John said, be very interesting in an archive perspective, but that's about it. Any further questions on digitisation?
I think, if I just add to that, I think manufacturing drawings nowadays are all of CAD systems, so they're all electronic. And by and large, our suppliers of spares do their own drawings, electronic drawings, and we get copies of those so we know what they're making. But an actual drawing is not of any use today because they can't feed it into their machine tools, which needs a digital input. So the old drawings, which are on, ammonia-soaked paper, the blue lines on it that we used to grow up with, are of historic interest only. They're not terribly useful for day-to-day use.
Well, they certainly are interesting.
Oh, they're interesting.
We went and saw them, but no real benefit.
They're of no utility.
Anything else on that? No? Okay, so we go to membership report, please.
Right, membership today is 731. Last year it was 720. Now last year I was a bit depressed because we were about 20% down on pre-COVID levels of membership. But talking to Mark Yeomans afterwards, he's a member of 2 other car clubs and they've experienced the same sort of drop of 20%. So I stopped sort of getting too worried about it and too depressed. We still have a few of the older members who send us cheques and credit cards for their renewals, but we can cope with that. But most people find the website fairly easy to renew their membership. Changing the subject, this year we're celebrating 125 years of Lagonda. 25 years ago, for the centenary of Lagonda, the late Rudy Wood-Muller organised a very successful trip to Springfield, Ohio, where of course Lagonda all started. That's been in the news a bit lately, I gather. But I just say that Valerie and I went from the UK, members came from all over the world. We had several meals there, but I don't think we had any cats or dogs.
Any questions for the membership? I don't know whether you saw that in Springfield, Ohio, these things appeared in the last week or so. Okay, shall we move on to the event side then? Well, what a success we've had in this last year with events. It's been absolutely outstanding. I've got to thank all the events organisers, as David said earlier on. We started off with Martin Sumner, thank you very much, for the Norfolk tour, where we had, was it 20 cars, Martin?
20 cars, 19 rides.
Okay, so that's pretty successful, and actually when you go past the 20 it becomes a little bit less manageable. This was followed by the Northern Dinner where we had 53 people, fantastic event, and please encourage everyone to join us at the Northern Dinner and the trophies for next year. It'll be in the Peak District again?
9th of May. Yeah.
9th of May, thank you. And then we had Bill Spence, thank you, for Bill and Sue for the Ultima Thule up in the Shetlands and Orkneys. And again, just remind me how many cars we had for that one, Bill?
13 altogether.
13.
12 plus my car.
12 plus yours. Fantastic. And that was some distance and the number of ferries that you went on, etc.
Everything worked apart from the weather.
Well, I think we can see outside today we can't govern this part of life. Then we had 2 visits to Brooklands. Brooklands relived, where we had 30 cars, easily the largest mark of the pre-war there, where they were trying to encourage the public into looking at the older generation, if you like. That counts as us. Followed by the Lagonda Fete in August, where we had 40 cars for that. I think you're probably getting a flavour. The Spitfire event, where we had 22 in Kent. Great, with Spitfires taking off in formation. Quite spectacular. Suffolk dinner. And then we had the Continental Tour. Another 20 cars on that one. Yeah. Brilliantly organised by Jean. And he also organised the weather for that one as well, I believe, David, didn't he?
Almost too hot.
And then Champagne Tour, which I went on a couple of weeks ago. Another 20 cars, 49 at dinner and etc. So an outstanding year. Catherine organised that. Catherine and Philippe Nogent. Yeah. Fantastically organised, really excellent. So the number of events we've had in the last year is quite outstanding, I think. We've got Le Mans Classic next year, which a number of you are going on, which, I mean, last year was 235,000 spectators, so a huge event. So we've got plenty going on. Any questions on events at all? That would have been Catherine standing up. I'm afraid I had to go in her place. Okay. So, any other business at all? Tim?
Mr. Chairman, can I just say a word about the newsletter?
Yeah, please do.
I need some friends.
I think you've got a lot.
Good, because for the last 18 years I've been doing newsletter and twisting the arms of my friends to do a passage to start off our newsletter. And I'm running out of friends. So, please, do let me know if you'd like to do a short passage, about 1,500 words is what I'm asking for, but it can be more, it can be less. Tell us about how you acquired your car, why you love the Lagonda, what you've done to it, what you hope to do to it, and any other interesting bits and pieces you may have. We've had some fascinating letters over the past. As I say, I am getting a little bit short of arms to twist. So, I've got a notebook here. It's blank at the moment. I hope by the end of, you're right, we'll get it. I hope by the end of the morning, I'll have a few.
Martin, can I just congratulate you on your first AGM meeting? The target which I rarely met was to be under an hour, and it's now 5 to 12, so I think that's a brilliant outcome. Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, we had a question from, sorry, I couldn't see who it was.
In any other business, forgive me, but I went to an Armstrong Sidley AGM recently. I don't have an Armstrong Sidley, but they had the idea of inviting a few other obscure makes of cars, just to give it a bit of interest on the day, and I think it worked very well. People were interested in. They invited Bristols, and there were about 5 Bristols, and they invited Model T Fords, and there were about 5 of those. I think it added a bit of colour and interest, extra interest to the day. Okay. So I'm making a suggestion that a future AGM would invite, another car club. Probably an obscure make, so we don't get flooded with cars.
All right, that's something for us to discuss when we wrap up this AGM. Thank you very much. Thank you. And any other business? Okay, well, the weather, I mean, I've been sitting here, you haven't probably seen it, but the heavens have been opening every so often. And I think probably the best place is to leave the cars where they are. We've got the lunch here from 12:30 till 1:45. If you've got a ticket, then fantastic. If you don't have a ticket, well, we only have X number of meals. So there is availability in the main hotel should you not have a ticket. Rachel?
It might be good, and I'm talking to myself there as well, for all the cars which are scattered to...
Sorry, Rachel.
So it might be good for the cars which are scattered around, as well as three of them, to accumulate in here so the car can...
That would be great. So if someone's parked elsewhere, we've probably got a few spaces we can squeeze cars in, and certainly in the centre part, as long as people can access to get away, because I know Jonathan and Adam need to shoot off. We've got to fly back to Geneva, and so we need to be able to get the cars out as well. But I think if we keep them around here, that's fantastic. We do have the Eccles rapier, and the clothing and spares that are out in the marquee. But I think the weather is so poor at the moment. I think the ground is so sodden. It'd be a shame to get cars stuck on and onto the sort of the grass area. And 2 o'clock for the presentation, so an hour earlier than normal. So that you'll be able to get away before the rains come again.
Are you going to do that here or in the marquee?
We'll do it here, I think. I think because otherwise we'll be wandering over there. Yeah. If that's okay. So we'll do the presentations around this area at 2 o'clock. Well, anything for you, sir? Okay. Thank you very much. That's the meeting over. Thank you very much.
Yeah.